In the deserts of North America, where heat cracks the earth and survival is brutal, something exists that shouldn't. The horned lizard isn't fast, it isn't strong, it doesn't even hide well, yet it survives. Because when threatened, it fires blood from its eyes, not by accident, but with precision. A sudden stream aimed at its attacker. This isn't a wound, it's a weapon. Most creatures here rely on speed or power. The horned lizard relies on stillness. It becomes the ground. Blending into dust and stone, it stays invisible until it's seen. Then it reveals more. Its body is covered in sharp spines, designed to make it difficult to swallow. But when that fails, something extreme happens. Inside its head, pressure begins to build. Blood flow slows, veins tighten, until they rupture. And in an instant, a jet of blood shoots outward, controlled, targeted. The horned lizard can aim it. It chooses when to fire. And in one of the harshest places on Earth, that impossible defense keeps it alive. But why would an animal evolve something so extreme? Why turn its own blood into a weapon? The answer isn't what the blood is, but what it does. Not all predators react the same. Birds barely care. They rely on speed and sight. A sudden spray might startle them, but it won't stop them. But mammals react differently. Foxes, coyotes, when the blood hits their mouth or nose, they recoil, they hesitate, and often they walk away. Scientists believe the blood carries something more, a chemical defense, foul-tasting, irritating, something predators remember. Or maybe it's simpler, the shock, the sudden rupture, the unnatural spray, a signal that something is wrong. And in the wild, hesitation can mean death. The horned lizard uses that moment and survives. But this ability comes at a cost. Losing blood is dangerous. Recovery is slow. Energy is limited. This is not a trick. It's a last resort, a final gamble when everything else fails. Which raises a darker question. If survival demands something this extreme, what kind of world forces it? What kind of predator makes this necessary? The answer may lie in its diet. The horned lizard doesn't hunt widely. It specializes almost entirely on ants. Aggressive, dangerous, relentless. This choice shapes everything. Its slow movement, its low energy, its dependence on camouflage. It cannot chase, it cannot fight. It survives by not being seen, but specialization is a trap. Rely on one food source and you lose flexibility. You become predictable, and predictable prey is easy to find. Over time, predators adapt. They learn to see what others miss, and in that moment, camouflage fails, spikes fail. Something more is needed, something extreme. So evolution made a different choice. Not faster, not stronger, but stranger. It turned the lizard's own body into a weapon, a system where survival depends on controlled damage. And even this isn't the full story. Not all horned lizards use this defense equally. Some rarely rely on it, others depend on it more. Meaning this isn't just an ability, it's a strategy, one that shifts with environment, predators, and pressure. which leads to something unsettling. This may not be a single adaptation, but part of something deeper, a fragile system where blood, skin, and behavior work in balance. And if that balance shifts, even slightly, what comes next may be far more extreme than anything we've seen. The horned lizard isn't just defending itself, it's surviving on the edge. In a world where every force, heat, hunger, predators, pushes it closer to collapse. And sometimes survival at the edge demands something unnatural. Because the deeper we look, the stranger it becomes. This isn't just about a single defense. It's about how far evolution is willing to go. There is always a limit, a threshold where adaptation begins to blur into instability, where survival starts to look like self-destruction. The horned lizard lives at that boundary, and its blood is only one piece of something much larger, a system built on extremes. And if we follow that system further, what it reveals may be more unsettling than anything we've seen so far. The desert does not forgive weakness. Every movement costs energy. Every mistake invites death. Even feeding is a risk. The horned lizard consumes hundreds, sometimes thousands of ants each day, not by choice, but by necessity. Ants are small, low in energy, and often dangerous. They bite, they sting. Some carry venom strong enough to deter larger predators. And still, the lizard persists. Its tongue moves with precision, fast, efficient, relentless. Its body is built to handle toxins that would overwhelm most animals. But this specialization comes at a price. A body designed for ants is limited by ants. If the ants disappear, so does the lizard's chance to survive. So everything becomes a calculation. Energy versus risk. A fragile balance that works until it doesn't. This is why it cannot fight for long. It cannot chase. It cannot waste energy. Instead, it escalates. First, it freezes, becoming the ground itself. If that fails, it inflates, expanding its body, becoming harder to swallow. If the threat continues, it thrashes, using its spines as defense. But if nothing works, if the predator refuses to stop, only then does it cross the final line. The eyes swell, pressure builds, and in a single moment, blood becomes the last defense. But here's what makes this unsettling. The horned lizard isn't just reacting, it's calculating. Not consciously, but biologically. It doesn't use this defense on every threat. It chooses. Against birds, it often holds back. But against mammals, foxes, coyotes, it fires. This isn't random. It's selective. An internal system that decides when the cost is worth it. In other words, it knows when it matters. So how does something this precise evolve? The answer is time and repetition. Across generations, those that used this defense correctly survived. Those that didn't disappeared. Slowly, the system refined itself. Timing improved. Pressure became controlled. Accuracy increased. What we see today is not an accident. It's the result of relentless filtering, where only the most effective behaviors remained. But evolution doesn't create perfection. It creates what works. And sometimes what works feels deeply unnatural. There's another layer to this. The horned lizard's blood isn't just a defense. It's a signal. To a predator, this sudden burst from the eyes isn't just unpleasant, it's wrong. Prey aren't supposed to do this. They run, they hide, they fight in predictable ways. But this breaks the pattern. And in nature, Broken patterns create hesitation, a pause, a moment of doubt. Instinct falters, the attack slows, and in that brief disruption, the lizard survives. But survival here is never free. Every use comes at a cost. Blood is lost, energy drains, recovery is slow, which creates a dangerous balance. Use it too little, and it dies. Use it too often, and it still dies. The margin is razor thin. Every decision matters. Every moment counts. And in the desert, the consequences are final. The horned lizard isn't alone. Across nature, survival pushes limits. Some creatures use chemicals. Others sacrifice limbs. Some endure damage just to escape. But this is different. Because the horned lizard's defense is not external. It doesn't inject venom. It doesn't rely on armor. Instead, it turns inward. It uses its own system, its own blood as a weapon. Something meant to stay hidden, forced into the open. And in doing this, it reveals something deeper. Survival isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about becoming stranger, not efficient, not elegant, but effective, even if it blurs the line between function and failure. The horned lizard doesn't survive because it is powerful. It survives because it disrupts expectation, because it creates hesitation, because in a world of patterns, it breaks them. And that may be the most unsettling truth. This creature is not an exception. It is a possibility, a glimpse of how far life can bend under pressure, how deeply it can reshape itself when survival demands it. If conditions shift, others could follow. Different forms, different methods, but the same idea: survival at any cost. In the end, the horned lizard is not just a curiosity, it is a warning. Because beneath the surface of nature, beneath the calm, the balance, the order, there are systems living on the edge, where survival is not simple, not clean, but extreme, and sometimes disturbing. Because when the world leaves no room for ordinary solutions, life doesn't stop, it adapts, even if that adaptation means turning itself into something that no longer feels entirely natural.